Common Sense Radio.
Good morning, you bunch of drunks.
Have you got color in your cheeks?
We've been talking about the whole trade situation, and there are individuals who are attempting to portray President Trump as anti-free trade, which is a typical lie from the Republicrats, the faux conservatives, and Ben Sass is one of them, who hates President Trump and is trying to make the claim that whatever he's doing with China is just anti-trade. Now, keep in mind, if you talk to Ben Sass, he'd be the first one, as these usual suspects are, to talk about how much they loved Ronald Reagan and how Ronald Reagan was the last true conservative, and Ronald Reagan is. I model myself after Ronald Reagan. I guarantee you go on Ben Sass's website. That's all he talks about is Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan put tariffs on clothespins. That's how aggressive he was in terms of protectionist policies. And again, you have to be careful about your tariffs. You have to be careful about what you do in terms of slapping tariffs and protecting and being protectionist. But before this, Republicans who talked about free trade, it wasn't free trade at all because it wasn't fair trade. And when you have the kinds of trade imbalances and trade deficits that we have, you know darn well that the deals that have been cut over the past 2 decades by Republicans and Democrats have sold the American worker down the river, which is why when President Trump came back and talked about a resurgence in manufacturing in this country and beyond, there were people listening because they've watched as the industrial Northeast and other areas have gone into the pot. It's why the people in Wisconsin and Michigan and those places voted for President Trump in droves, because he promised that we would bring back the competitive nature of this country, bring back manufacturing, and stop selling the American worker down the river. And so all these Republicans that apparently say that they're the supermodels of conservatism actually have only been catering to their donors and not to the American worker. These are individuals who essentially put together deals that just simply undermined manufacturing. Why do you think manufacturing has gone south over the past 2 decades? And why do you think plants are closing? We're closing left and right. It's because of the trade deals. It's not because suddenly there's not a market for what we sell, and it's not because of unions. It's because we've cut deals that gave advantages to foreign countries and disadvantaged American ones. I mean, I think that's very simple. President Trump cut number 8 here on the WTO.
The WTO has been a disaster for this country, for our country. In fact, the rise of China economically was, if you look at it, directly equal to the date of the opening of the World Trade Organization.
Yes, of course. I mean, this has been a disaster, and Republicans have been part of this. And that's the problem. Now, do we want to go back to a time when you're putting tariffs on such things as clothespins and foreign motorcycles? That's what President Trump did. I mean, President Reagan did to help Harley Davidson survive. He slapped tariffs on Suzuki. Now, I don't know whether we want to actually get into that kind of stuff, but that's what Reagan did. There's a long list of protectionist, and he was widely criticized for it. But nonetheless, the same people who are now criticizing President Trump would be the first ones to tell you they're the very mirror image of Ronald Reagan. Like Ben Sass would be a perfect example of that. The never Trumper Ben Sass, who's a lightweight and a Republican if there ever was one. But he'd be the first to tell you he's a cool, clean conservative. But these guys who all claim that they're conservatives have sold the American worker down the river and have put the American businesses and manufacturers at a disadvantage because of their bad deals. Now, you do have to be careful about what you do, and you pick and choose certain things. But the steel industry, aluminum, here's President Trump again on that. Cut number 7.
We'll be imposing tariffs on steel imports and tariffs on aluminum imports. And you're going to see a lot of good things happen. You're going to see expansions of the companies. I know that, David, you said you'd be expanding. Tim, I know you said you were expanding. Pretty much all of you will immediately be expanding if we give you that level playing field.
Yeah, and did you notice that Pennsylvania? How do you think Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania voted in the 2016 election? Home of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and also home to abandoned steel plants everywhere, thanks to Republicans and Democrats because of the trade imbalances and everything else. So, while the Steelers are still a football team named after the high steel industry there in Pittsburgh, the Steelers are existing and playing on the field, but the steel plants are empty. That's a problem. And President Trump is exactly right. Kevin, thanks for calling the show. How you doing, man?
Hey, good morning. You hear rhinos and Democrats saying that, we can't do that. We'll trigger a trade war, Well, the Chinese and the Canadians and the Koreans, whoever else, when they dump cheap steel on the market that's subsidized by their governments, they're not worried about triggering a trade war with us. So screw them. Let's bring the war on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's interesting, and Kevin, thanks for pointing that out. There's this idea somehow that every trade war is bad for the country. And that's actually not true, as Kevin points out. Sometimes you do have to be to war with these guys. China loves money. China's not going to do anything that's going to hurt itself. So you have to rely on that. You got to face the beast eye to eye.